I would now like to invite Mr. Adonis Yiangou. Mr. Yiangou studied business administration and finance at the Baruch College of the City University of New York. In 1996, he became a member of the Cyprus Green Party and currently holds the position of Secretary General. In 2003, he became the chairman of the Board of Cyprus Land Development Organization. He is also currently the executive director of the PCM Advisors. His lecture topic today is a new sustainable economic model for Cyprus. Can you please have a round of applause for Mr. Adonis Yiangou?
The slideshow, it's going to be a refreshing tool, as my speech may bore a lot of you at this time. But I hope you enjoyed. Cyprus is beautiful. Okay. It is with great pleasure and some apprehension that I arrived at this forum to present my paper. My pleasure lies in the anticipation of exchanging views and ideas on the current economic situation. My apprehension is of course based on the fact that my country is also the most recent member of this unfortunate club of broken economies in Europe. I want to start my address with a quote from Groucho Marx, the comedian, not the politician, not the economist actually. He said, "It isn't so much that hard times are coming, the change observed is mostly soft times going." So, Cyprus at the start of the 21st century took a decisive step towards transforming the country's financial services center. This effort was based on three pillars: the high standard of its human resources, the very attractive tax regime in conjunction with a number of bilateral agreements for the avoidance of double taxation, and the pending accession of Cyprus to the European Union, which eventually took place in May of 2004. Today, this model of economic growth is in question by some of our European partners. The difficult economic situation of the country has given rise to various disparaging and unfair remarks about Cyprus. Particularly, harsh language has been used by some German politicians who recently described Cyprus as a country of Russian oligarchs, the Serbia mafia, and tax invaders. According to estimates by the European Commission, the Cypriot economy is expected to experience at least 2 more years of recession. The limited liquidity faced by the Cypriot government requires the immediate signing of a Memorandum of Understanding agreement with the so-called Troika, which will allow Cyprus entry to the European support mechanism. At the same time, economic activity has been frozen since the subscriber of the private sector, the banks, also faces serious problems with capital inadequacy and therefore reduced ability to provide new funding. The result is an unprecedented rising unemployment rate of 15% of the total population in Cyprus, which is 800,000 people, recording the largest increase of any country in the Eurozone in a single year, and a fiscal hole approaching 20 billion euros. The numbers are minimal compared to the budgets of other European countries, but for a small island as Cyprus, they're really big, really big. Unemployment for decades until January 2009 never surpassed 4%. So you know what's coming. And if we take the Greece and Spain, 15% of unemployment could be within another year reach easily 20–25%. We're now called to redefine our image, our economic and social resources, and to reposition our country within a Europe also hit by economic crisis, looking for a fresh start. Cyprus can and should be treated as an attractive partner in a rapidly changing environment, both within the EU and globally. We first need to rediscover our values, to place them in a modern context, and then to find a cohesive dialogue among ourselves and subsequently within our European partners. Our view for a new sustainable economic model for Cyprus sets as a primary objective the strengthening of the competitiveness of the European Union through implementing smart models of growth, placing the foundations of a knowledge-based economy and a program of sustainable development. These three priorities are important in an effort to create the conditions for better jobs, increased productivity, and social cohesion. Each member state is required, of course, to develop its own strategy for achieving the above objectives. The new economic model should not only encompass the common European goals, but also embark on a course that achieves our own aspirations. Cyprus, as a small economy, must begin to plan independently of the common strategy that Europeans have set collectively as a top priority, since this will reinforce the opportunity to get out of the current impasse. All these efforts cannot, of course, be pursued in a vacuum. We are a country with a rich history and culture. We have our own unique features, peculiarities, and strengths. We have natural beauty and landscapes. I don't know, what did I push here? Destroyed the natural landscape. And I'm a green. Okay. And now we also have the recent discoveries of rich natural reserves with significant evidence of the existence of substantial quantities of hydrocarbons in Cyprus' maritime area and a decisive incentive for future investment opportunities. All these factors, placed under one umbrella, will surely contribute to creating the necessary foundations for Cyprus to take a big step forward. And allow me to elaborate on that. Let's start with our attributes. We are a proud, hardworking, and resilient people that have been endured a succession of conquerors and cultural amalgamations. Deeply rooted in our DNA is an innate hospitality and insular innovation, since our history has none other than a constant struggle for existence and identity on our troubled island. On the other hand, our weaknesses can be mainly found in a political system imposed by the colonial forces that has encouraged our people to become complacent and deeply entrenched in ethnic and partisan politics. This in turn has produced a lack of visionary leadership and a lack of innovative thinking, inevitably leading to little or no long-term social and economic planning, in hindsight sustainable growth. We are a small community, but very multicultural. Within the frame of our constitution, we encompass Greek Cypriot majority and minorities of Turkish Cypriots, Armenians, Maronite, and Latin communities. Our accession to the European Union has attracted thousands of foreign workers on the island from countries within the EU, from countries of the Middle East, and from countries as far away as Sri Lanka, the Philippines, and even China. We advocate religious and cultural tolerance and promote our country through multilingual facilitation on tourism, trade, and financial services. Cyprus offers a remarkable for its size infrastructure, and in order to analyze this statement, I will divide infrastructure into two broad categories: the physical and the unquantifiable. The physical infrastructure includes an accessible and rich green environment, clean and safe seas and beaches, and a high-quality network of roads. The unquantifiable infrastructure includes our public services and utilities, the friendly legal framework, a stable and secure living environment for individuals and their property, public and private healthcare, and an education system at all levels. So you might ask, what happened? Well, I will not waste your time analyzing the past. I would like to present to you a plan for the future. The question we face is, how do we now move forward? Cyprus, first and foremost, needs vision as a process of convergence of our efforts on common goals and aspirations. Our country could evolve in various directions, all which are complementary and mutually supportive. Let me give you some priorities that Cyprus shall pursue. Since an explosion in 2011 that destroyed the island's main power station, actually the only power station nowadays, Cypriots have been paying the highest electricity rate in the European Union, adding additional distress to an already overwhelmed by the financial crisis society. I say that, in spite of this disaster, from the ashes of fossil fuel power, Cyprus can grow into an environmentally conscious island with immediate investment in alternative energy sources, solar and wind, and by 2017 be in a position to utilize its natural gas resources and with its revenues to help pay off its debt. Cyprus could also, at the same time, reinvent itself as a reasonably priced but quality holiday destination, once again becoming a preferred holiday resort of Europe and a gateway to the Middle East. Cyprus has the capability of becoming a regional European research and education center focusing on topics related to the Mediterranean environment and genetics, as well as to regional politics. A meeting place of culture and business in the center of the Middle East, or as we like to say, a crossroad between East and West. A conference center of the European Union that can serve as a kind of Mediterranean Switzerland for the surrounding Arab countries with fledgling democracies and uncertain futures, and a peace catalyst for their relations with Israel. To realize all or part of the above, we firstly recognize and then solve our weaknesses. We try to provide our country with those skills that will enable us to succeed in an admittedly very challenging and volatile environment. To win tomorrow, we now need to fight all these weaknesses accumulated over the years that had kept us from our goals. For a start, in Cyprus there is a digital gap with the rest of Europe. The integration of what we call an e-society is still at a very early stage, while many continue believing that all is well. The problem is the inefficiency of government agencies, which while visible in drafting and designing programs, failed to follow through with transparent procedures or deliver the expected results. The conquest of the information society requires investment in new technology, investment in human resources, in restructuring structures and processes. In Cyprus, we are only limited to the first and still strive to follow through with the rest. Education is an area where, while investment is sufficiently satisfactory, in order to bring results that will assist Cyprus on this new path, we should invest in the other two pillars. The Ministry of Education is currently developing long-term planning for new technology and, secondly, changing directions in educational needs with specific and measurable goals and targets, aiming at redirecting our youth to alternative career choices. What are we experiencing today? Crisis in the Cypriot economy, unemployment, especially among young people, and a lack of competitiveness. Globalization has taken us unprepared. The economic model needs revision, and for all of us, the bet is to transform our economy into an adaptable and flexible economy. A competitive economy that creates more and better jobs, where young people will be better positioned to innovate, produce, and earn by negotiating their knowledge and talent. A critical factor for the success of this venture is to invest in human capital. In our view, this is the most sustainable investment that can be made in Cyprus. To do all this, we're developing a coherent policy that sets research, new technologies, and innovation for producing financial results that will be targeted and not spasmodic. We need to create a research culture and a culture of innovation from the first years of primary school. All this cannot be achieved merely by proposal. It should be implemented in educational programs and be part of a broader educational reform. And in this case, emphasis should be given to procedures and manpower. We recognize that in the future, the societies that will survive will be those that are innovative and therefore competitive. The improvement of the educational process at all levels is a prerequisite for innovation. We have an obligation to prepare the new generations in a way that is competitive in the labor market, both in Cyprus and internationally. This is our only hope to surpass quickly our technological illiteracy and reduce the gap that separates us from the rest of Europe. Today we are faced with a situation where the players in Cyprus have difficulty recognizing this need. We have remained for too long committed to outdated practices that do not allow the interconnection between education, labor market, and entrepreneurship. At European level, there exist better practices that we can and should study carefully. Many countries have already introduced into their educational programs innovation, competitiveness, and entrepreneurship, creating favorable conditions for the practical application of the knowledge economy. In the case of Cyprus, the introduction of technology and innovation in our educational system is a national investment. In a nutshell, this is my vision for a new sustainable economic model for Cyprus. To become a successful state of the EU, to place a standard of excellence and a code of ethics in the services and products we provide. To apply strict regulation and supervision on the public sector with measurable criteria and public accountability. To become a green, welcoming, multicultural island with a standard of excellence in ecological development, services, and innovation surrounded by blue beaches under a warm sun, aiming not only at satisfying the materialistic, but also the holistic well-being and the happiness of the citizens. In an address in 1959, John F. Kennedy said, "When written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger, and the other represents opportunity. The challenge lies ahead, and we have to choose whether to view this crisis as an opportunity or to allow it to overtake us." Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can now move on to questions.
Hello, we welcome you here in ICT House. My name is Serjan. I am one of the master students here. I was hoping to ask you a tourism-related question, actually. I was going to ask you, is that safe to travel Cyprus? Because the northern Cyprus is under invasion of Turks, and I don't know what's the situation right now with Turkish people. And there have been some plans, like from Kofi Annan and everything, but Cypriot said no, and Turkish people said yes. And I guess it has to be considered as a problem, but why it's not solved by Cypriots,
Okay.
I mean Southern Cypriots. So what is your aspects in this invasion?
Okay.
And if you want to visit Northern Cyprus, we have to take visa from Cyprus or from where? From Britain or from Turkish people? Thanks.
Okay, for a very small island, which is just a dot on the map if you see it, usually, it is a divided island. There was an invasion by Turkey in 1974. The problem is still there. There hasn't been a solution. Yes, you are right. There was an effort in 2003 we put a referendum to the two communities to decide. Yes, the Turkish community voted yes to that plan, and the Greek Cypriot community voted no by a majority of 76%. That was the vote and the decision of the people. Of course, this was guided by politicians as usually, and I don't want to go into details right now. It is a safe country to visit. Yes, it is a tourist destination, very famous European tourist destination. It is safe. The border is open in inverted commas. I mean, you can visit both sides of Cyprus when you are there. There is a visa to be approved if you want to go to the northern side. But if you are within Europe, you can always visit the south side without any visa requirements. I'm sorry, was there something else you wanted?
What is your aspect, I asked about this invasion? I ask about your aspects about this invasion. So how should it be solved?
Well, my belief is that we're going to have a solution, and this is not going to be delayed much more. I don't want to get into the details right now, as it's out of our core, it's out of my core speech, but we can discuss it later if you want.
Thank you, sir. Lamile from South Africa. Just a few questions. First, you says you view that the future for Cyprus must plan independently from EU. My question is that not possible a suicidal decision? Why did you join EU if you plan to plan independently of EU? Number two, Cyprus labor force sits at 8.5% agriculture, 20.5% industry, 71% services, which means education is key, is strong, if my economics serves me well. Now, you earlier mentioned that your workforce is largely integrated in terms of receiving the workforce from Asia, Africa, and European countries. Currently, the EU zone is sitting at 10% of its population being non-Europeans. That is 47 million population. And the EU is facing a job crumbling and economic crisis. Do you foresee this strategy to sustain your economy being dependent on the workforce outside Cyprus being sustainable? Okay. Bear in mind now, the Nazi of Greece is proposing that they must go. Thank you.
Okay, I'm glad in Cyprus we still haven't had the Golden Dawn phenomenon, though we do have some very low in percentage political movements towards that. I think in the last presidential elections, the representative of the Cyprus Golden Dawn received about 0.8% of the vote, which is very low compared to the 16% that they have in Greece. But that I think will increase as the crisis now it's over. It's taking over. Also, I would like to say that unfortunately, the people outside European Union, the workforce that has been in Cyprus for the last years, because of the crisis, they are leaving themselves. I mean, if they don't see any opportunity or no jobs are available anymore, they don't find a reason in staying. So unfortunately, that will also be diminished eventually. So that may not bring in the forces of Golden Dawn to force them out. It's a very small country. It's 800,000. So we should be flexible. Actually, that's my question. How can a country of 800,000 people are not leaders in change, are not flexible enough to accept change, and we're lagging on that? Unfortunately, it has to do with the history of the island, and as I explained before, a very tormented history. So I want to believe that eventually this crisis will bring in change and people will go forward.
More questions or comments?
Thank you very much for your time. Oh, sorry.
My question is about the... Yeah, I'm Giovanni, I'm from Italy, and I work here at the ICD. My question is more related to the green political movement. I don't know how much the percentage of the Green Party in Cyprus, but among the southern countries and Mediterranean countries, the green political movement seems they don't appeal to the electorate, and I wanna know if you have some explanation for why, compared to some other parts of Europe, like in Germany or in Belgium or in the Netherlands, where they gather like around 10-20% of the of the electorate, whereas in the south they don't.
That would be a nice paper for you to do and do some research on the matter. It's a question that I would love to have some answers on. Actually, Cyprus is doing much better than other neighboring countries in that sector. We have 2.1% of the vote of the people. We have one representative in the parliament out of the 56 members they have. We have one. Greece doesn't have participation. Italy don't. I get not even Spain, I guess. And I don't want to go to the southern part of the Mediterranean, the Arab world, where green parties almost are not existent. So yes, in Cyprus we're doing fairly well on that. We hope to grow more. And now I'm the Secretary General. I've been appointed 2 days ago. Wow. So, part of my strategy is to open up as much as I can to the citizens movement now within the crisis and attract more young people in the party and try and enforce policies that will help Cyprus to go forward in that sector.
Allow me to ask a related question. We were talking about this over lunch as well. I think for the region, as you were saying, Cyprus is doing relatively well when it comes to the green movement compared to its neighbors. However, it seems like the main challenge which still needs to be overcome is, let's say, winning the hearts and minds of citizens. Do you have any specific ideas or suggestions how civil society or an organization like ICD, for example, could engage or somehow try to engage citizens more in order to speed up that transition? I mean, even though 2.1% is good compared to the neighboring countries, there's a long ways to go. And I think a lot of it does have to do with that exchange with private citizens and civil society. Do you have maybe a success story of where you saw a kind of a project that really succeeded? Or do you have a wish or a desire for the kinds of activity that a civil society organization could do?
Well, as I said before, crisis creates opportunities. So we want to take advantage of the crisis to create more jobs through the energy sector, the alternative energy sector that the Green Party is heading. Cyprus has, out of the 365 days of the year, we have 300 days of sun. So I really wonder why we don't have alternative energy set already, and we still have to depend on fossil fuel. But that has to do with other older politics that you all know how things work in that part of the world. And I think that's where we want young people to come in and to stop these practices. And we want to make people to become more involved in their routine and the daily life of the island.
And do you think European Greens could also be helpful in that process? For example,
we have a very good connection with the European Greens, and we hope they will help us a lot on that sector.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We still have time for additional comments or questions. Let's.
I'm sure you missed my first question.
Okay, that's why I wanted to.
Planning alone. I also noticed.
There were a lot of parts in your question, and I couldn't hold all of it.
Just an additional point of clarity. I've noticed that your major export destination is Greece, followed by UK. Third is Germany. Those are major top 3 export countries in terms of your final product. Now, as a senior person in that country, do you see this economic boom sustainable if the economic crisis continues in Greece, which is your main export destination? And bear in mind again my first question, planning independently, but you are in the EU. Is it a strategic path?
Okay, we are in the EU, but we still are an independent country that has to resolve their own problems. That's why we have to prioritize on that. We have a lot of problems, actually. The financial crisis is, Cyprus is #1 now as a priority to the European Union in order to resolve the financial crisis. We are ready to sign a memorandum with the Troika. Actually, I guess within this month we're going to have the memorandum signed, and hopefully we'll put our shop in order, as there were a lot of problems and a lot of trouble in the past. Okay, now about the export capability. Okay, we're in a crisis now. I don't think the figures you mentioned are still in existence. Mostly what drives the economy right now is the financial services sector, and that's what we're trying to keep alive. Tourism has problems. We haven't taken advantage of the new tourist models. We still have an old touristic model, and that's another thing we have to change soon. There are a lot of problems in the island, I accept that. Unfortunately, I'm not in power. I represent a very small percentage. I hope they would listen to us more. Thank you very much. Mr. Castro wanted to ask something.
How is Cyprus helping to develop the youth through various programs in order to kind of keep your economic growth within the country to Cyprus and not kind of export out to different places, right? So are there various programs or different things that Cyprus is trying to do to engage the youth further?
Okay, first of all, Cyprus, as I said, it's a very small island and doesn't have a lot of scientific projects that could involve the young. Let's say a geneticist who is in the States will never come to continue his research in Cyprus unless there is something specific, I mean. So I guess we're talking about a very small country. And we're concentrating on our strengths, and we're not trying to become something we can never become.
Sure. And the youth population in Cyprus, what's the actual percentage of youth population?
Actually, there's a problem with the population. We have an aging population, and that's another problem. And the unemployment in the youth sector is, as in the rest of Europe, it's about 25%.
Thank you.